Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes just because it usually takes that long for people to realize they need to register and get themselves into StreamYard. So we'll give it a minute. But welcome. I'm Anne Harrad, if you don't know me already. And today we're going to be talking about successful work transitions. And there's time for a Q&A at the end. In the meantime, while we're waiting for people to dribble in, I would really love to hear what's on your mind when it comes to work transitions at the moment, so that I can tweak this and tailor it as I go to make sure that you get the most out of it. So please use the chat and use it throughout as well. Any questions or reflections you've got as you go along, I love to see them. But just as we're waiting for people to dribble through, I would love to hear what work transitions are on your mind right now. Any questions you've got, anything that's on your mind in particular that you're really hoping to get out of today, please use the comments. You can also send me a private message if you'd prefer. What's on your mind when it comes to work transitions, or what work transitions are you currently going through? Welcome to those coming in. We're going to give it another minute or so as people dribble in. Welcome. While we're waiting, please use the chat to let me know what work transition are you going through right now, or what's on your mind when it comes to change at work. You can use the private comment bit to send something directly to me if you'd like as well. Oh, I've got one come through here. I'm wondering how to do it well and make good choices. Absolutely, we'll be covering that today. And I'll make sure that I point at that as we go through. Welcome, everybody. Right, I'm going to get started and we'll find that people drip in. Welcome to Successful Work Transitions webinar and Q&A with me, Anne Harrad Ross. The whole idea of today is to get you to think a little bit differently about work transitions, to give you some ideas that you might go away and implement, and also just so that you know that you're not alone going through change at work. Or did Oscar Wilde say, the only constant in life is change? And change is something that I specialize in because it's awesome, but it's also really quite hard. And I'm going to be talking a bit about that today. So we are going to talk about why work transitions are really important and why focusing on them for your career and for your actual work performance is really important. I'm going to talk about the key elements for successful work transitions with some anonymized client stories, and I'll sprinkle in a few of my own experiences as well. Of course, there will be a plug for what I do at the end, and there will also be time for a Q&A or some reflections and thoughts so that we can make it even more tailored to you today. Please use the comment section to ask questions throughout or share any reflections. I'm sure everybody would benefit from them. So let's get started. So what do we mean when we talk about work transitions? So a transition is a process or a period of changing from one state to another. And that could be loads of things in the context of work or our careers. It could be returning from leave. It could be getting a promotion. Could be making a big decision, changing careers, a new contract, moving country, moving company. Could be going through redundancy, a change in responsibility, restructures, which I'm seeing a lot of at the moment, a new role. It could even be management change or a change in your manager. That can have a significant impact on us. So all these sorts of changes are constantly happening at work and in our careers. And I work with loads of different people that are going through work transitions. And these are common reasons why they struggle with work transitions or change at work in their careers. Humans just generally underestimate the difficulties of change, even positive change. It's actually really difficult for our human brains to react really quickly to change. We also find that we're expected to manage everything alone. And I certainly found this the more senior I got in my career, the less support I got, especially when it came to change, because they're like, oh, you're great, you've done this before, it'll all be fine, off you go. But actually, you're gaining responsibility and learning new things every time you progress in your career. So I always find this a really funny one. Often we feel rushed and overwhelmed because you don't get much time to reflect, plan, and adjust when you're going through change at work. The expectations are always really high and the pace is always really fast. And that can often lead to confidence wobbles. When we go through change, our brains are much more susceptible to the inputs of others, much more susceptible to questioning and questioning ourselves. Especially if we find that we suffer with imposter feelings, these can rise up, and this can all just knock us. We get these advice from friends and family and colleagues when we're going through change because we want to find a solution. We almost want to fast track it. But often that means we feel overwhelmed with the amount of ideas or inputs or contrasting advice. But we also feel frustrated by the lack of new perspectives or actionable ideas, and it's often laced with bias. So, who am I and why work transitions? Well, I've got first-hand experience of work transitions because I've got over 16 years of leadership experience in global corporates like Johnson and Johnson and Reckitt's. My background is predominantly commercial marketing, frontline account management. And in that time, I worked out I'd had something like 15 work transitions. That's like nearly one a year. That means that change really is a big constant in our careers and in our work life, and that's just work, right? And we're full people. That doesn't even account for all the personal change I was going through in all those 16 years. Breakups, moving house, moving town, family stuff. So we're always going through change, and some of those changes are bigger and some of those changes are smaller. Some happen to us, some we create for ourselves. But change is a fascinating thing, not just from a kind of neuroscience point of view, but it's also a time when we just don't get as much support as we often need. And that's why I am really passionate about supporting people through changes at work, because I can see the difference it can make. I'm a qualified coach and I'm an accredited senior practitioner with the European Mentoring and Coaching Council. I always like to mention that just because it means I hold professional standards, I have a supervisor, and it means that I do things properly and take this very seriously. But I'm not your stereotypical coach. As I said, I don't have an HR background. I have very much a leadership and commercial background. And my sort of style preference, if you're into personality preferencing, which I totally am, I find it fascinating. I am a blue-red, which in Myers-Briggs is an ENTJ, or disc profiling. I am a DC. All of that essentially just means I'm quite direct, I'm quite analytical, I'm quite structured, I get straight to the point. And that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of emotion that comes with all of that stuff. It just means I'm super practical, direct, challenging, and structured, which means that I bring a little bit of something a bit different to that. And hopefully you'll see some of that coming through today. So why is it important to focus on successful work transitions? Well, it's such an amazing opportunity to steer your own ship. Change is an amazing opportunity for growth if we're able to get it right. And that's not just growth in our careers and at work, but personal growth. And it can reset careers. It can affect long-term progress and success, both positively and negatively, depending on how it goes. But we usually have this really narrow window to act quickly to give us a good shot at that success and staying ahead, because change happens so fast, the expectations are so high, and we're not given a huge amount of a grace period when we go through any change, are we? So this is a picture of me and my husband here. We like to go canoeing and kayaking and anything outdoors generally. But it made me think of this because when you are canoeing or kayaking, the person at the, I have to get this is the right way around now, person at the back does the steering and the one at the front is all about the kind of power and momentum. The tricky thing with our careers is we have to do both. We have to do both on our own all the time. Focusing on successful work transitions is also really important for stress and emotional well-being. Making big decisions and going through change leads to anxiety and frustration for pretty much everybody because our brains are wired from way back when to like predictability. And when we don't have that predictability, it's when the amygdala, part of our brain responsible for emotions and part of fight or flight, kind of goes into overdrive because it hasn't got what it needs. This can escalate and it can affect both our personal well-being and our professional performance. But the great news is that we take action on this. We can lift those emotions and make things easier for ourselves, quicker, more enjoyable, and more productive. But if we don't, we can lead to quite prolonged stress, decreased satisfaction, and as a lot of people say to me when they come to me, a loss of mojo. And it's often at that point people come to me, and I'm always encouraging people to do it before they get to that point. This is my dog Alba with her little chicken toy, and she's a good example of this, I think. She sleeps like 20 hours a day. She has a very nice life. How can we be a little bit more dog about change? And the final big reason that it's important to focus on successful work transitions is maintaining our confidence. As we progress in our careers, the expectation of confidence and control increases. I once had a manager when I stepped into probably my first big chunky leadership role, way more people, way more focus, responsibility. And it was all quite a lot in the first couple of weeks. And I remember saying to my then manager, it's a lot, isn't it? I'm feeling like quite overwhelmed. And they said, well, if you can't hack it, there's like 20 people behind you who want this role. So crack on. And I thought, okay, we're not going to be talking about emotions or anything here. Functionally amazing, incredible support from that point of view, but made it really clear that this wasn't going to be something we were going to be talking about. And I hear about it. I hear that kind of thing a lot. I hear that a lot. Often when we go through change, we can bring up these imposter feelings, and these confidence wobbles can be really crippling if we don't deal with them, and we can keep shoving them down, but they'll just come back up again. So dealing with any confidence wobbles early is so important to stop you holding yourself back, going after the opportunities that change can throw at you. But if you delay action and kind of wait for things, it can impact your credibility. You can feel frustrated and you might end up being overlooked for things like promotions because it's the kind of thing that people notice and feel. This is an example of I trained to be a gym instructor for fun. I teach women to lift weights once a week. When I walked into this room for the practical weekend for my qualification, there were all these really strong people. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I feel like I stick out like a sore thumb. But they were really welcoming. And I had to remember I had also done all the pre-work to be there. I had done the coursework. I was going to smash it just as much as they were. And making sure I anchored in that own self-belief meant I had this amazing experience. And that's now something that's a huge part of my life that I really value. And I wouldn't have had that if I'd let that get to me that weekend. So doing all of that successfully is why you are here today. So you might be familiar with the Kubler-Ross change curve, not a relation. This was originally developed as part of grief research. And grief is, of course, one of the toughest changes a human ever goes through. But over time, people have realized that this change curve is applicable to all change. It's just how long you spend in each stage of it varies. But how quickly you get through each stage is also down to you. You're in control of each stage of this and your own change curve. Problems. Hopefully you can still see me and hear me. Apologies for that. There are 4 conditions for success when it comes to change at work and work transitions. One is clarity, one is reflection, preparation, and underpinning all of that is the right kind of support. So I'm going to talk through each one of these in turn and share some anonymized client stories to bring it to life a little bit. And hopefully this will give you a few things to think about that will be applicable to your change. So the first one, clarity. There are 3 important clarity factors for successful work transitions. The first is mindset, then resilience, and finally proactivity. So kicking off with mindset. So, mindset is the assumptions and beliefs that shape the way we see ourselves and the world. But loads of people lack confidence and self belief to have successful work transitions. They have these imposter feelings. I'm just not good enough. I don't deserve to be here. What if I get found out? They have limiting beliefs. I'm just not good at this. Or it all is a bit new. It's all too different. Or I've never been through this before. Or I didn't ask for this. Or this is so unfair. It's not fair that it's happening to me. We can be really influenced by others. So all this conflicting advice that knocks that self belief. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Or is that really true? All of these thoughts whirl around our heads, even when we're going through positive change or change we start to approach as positive. Because I do genuinely believe that all change is positive if we can grab it in the right way. And that's the mindset is absolutely the key for that. So that right mindset helps you spot those opportunities, handle challenges way easier. You kind of need the right mindset to even go and be proactive about any change, keeps that confidence high, reduces the little voices in our heads around insecurity and self doubt, and increases our motivation and the energy to keep going all the way through that curve. So, for the right work transition mindset, you have to understand where you are now. What are your current assumptions and beliefs about yourself and the situation you find yourself in? What emotions does that bring up for you? Then looking back at that, what are the barriers stopping you from having the mindset you want and need to successfully navigate this transition? Then you've got to think, what are the helpful thoughts for a growth mindset? So a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is a belief, oh, I can't do this or I can't change. A growth mindset is, I can't do this yet. I haven't changed yet. I haven't settled in yet. Having the right mindset also helps you focus on positivity. And I don't mean that to the point where positivity can tip over into being toxic, right? But what I mean here is staying positive, seeing opportunities, seeing things as challenges, not as problems, help us keep that energy and that motivation. Mindset also helps you take a step back and say, what can I control and what can I do to move forwards wherever I am right now? The second in the clarity section is resilience. Change is tough. And it doesn't, I mean, it happens quickly, but we don't get over it or through it quickly. It genuinely uses a lot of energy because that amygdala part of our brain doesn't like unpredictability. It almost works overdrive to try and get the predictability and control that it needs. And that genuinely uses more sugar and more energy. So that's why we're always tired when we finish a training course, because of all the learning we've been going through, because of all that part of the brain working really, really hard. It's also why we put lots of sweets out when we do training courses. So it uses a lot of energy. Uncertainty can often lead to fear. Even when we're going through change we've approached as positive, we don't really necessarily know what it's going to feel like. We don't know what's going to happen next. When you think that, particularly when we join a new company, you've usually had, 2 or 3 touch points with that new company before you essentially move a huge part of your life to it. It's a big commitment that we make, but we never quite know how it's going to turn out. Change can be demotivating and frustrating. People are always saying to me, I want to get through it quicker. I just want to be there now. And that's just the way it is. And a lot of these things start to affect our resilience. I also see people coming out of quite toxic situations, either toxic managers or cultures, or on the back of roles being made redundant, that really affects their resilience. And that then means that there's a knock-on impact with the next change that they're going through. So resilience helps to strengthen your ability to handle those emotional challenges as you go through change. It helps maintain that positive outlook, even when you face setbacks, and it reduces stress. So we all know that resilience is really important, but it's also really difficult in these circumstances. So to build resilience with people, I work on firstly identifying and reframing unhelpful things they tell themselves. Oh, I should know this by now. I should be settled in by now. I should have moved forwards by now. I should be feeling differently. How true are those things? and how helpful are they? And then pinpointing what is helping and hindering the resilience here. And then everybody's different. So that's why the kind of work that I do is coaching, because you can't really tell people what different coping strategies are going to work for them. They have to kind of work for it themselves. We know ourselves. What is right for you and relights your fire and gives you strength again versus somebody else. And then focus on that for well-being. The third clarity factor, the third and final clarity factor, is proactivity. As an ex-hiring manager and as ex-leader, I always used to say that this is the major differentiator between successful and unsuccessful people in their careers in general, but particularly when it comes to things like transitions. It was something I always looked for when I was hiring, because you can teach a lot of the rest, but proactivity has to come from deep within you. It means taking charge of your own situation to get more control, help you clarify what you need and want from the situation, not letting other people's or organizations' needs and wants affect you. And it gives you a genuine competitive advantage over your peers. You can tell I'm very passionate about proactivity. In order to be proactive, you've got to feel strong, which means you have to have done the mindset and the resilience work first. Then you need to start working on what are your values and your goals? What do you want out of this change? Figure out how to get the info or the connections that you need to deliver against those goals. Understand what you can control and let go of what you can't control in this situation. So I wanted to share with you Sarah's story, and Sarah, an anonymized client story. Sarah was a senior leader in the data industry, and she'd just landed a new job after leaving quite a toxic work environment. So she was really sort of run down, and the stress from that previous job really left her doubting her skills and ability. She wanted to feel more positive about the change because she knew it was positive, but she just didn't feel it yet. And her new job involved more days in the office and a longer commute. So that way, we never just go through change in isolation in work, do we? It often has an impact on multiple parts of our lives. She was preparing for her new role. She loved reading books and articles, but it wasn't enough to make her feel positive. So she came to me and we worked a lot on identifying the roots of her self-doubt. What things had she taken on board from that previous environment that she knew she wanted to leave, but she couldn't leave behind? Reminding herself what she's capable of. There's loads of research out there that shows that focusing on our strengths has a direct impact on our confidence and our performance. I created a quiet, dedicated space for this exploration and reflection because she had such a busy home and work life that she just was struggling to make the time to think. But slowly, she started to trust her abilities again. She came up with some really effective ways that worked for her and her family to balance the demands of the new routine and home life. And she started in her new role getting some of those early quick wins, which we know are so important. She quickly became a trusted leader, and it was almost like talking to a different person. She'd left a situation that really wasn't serving her, and she was in a position then to grasp that and be the person she wanted to be, get back to herself, focus on what she wanted to focus on. So that's Sarah's story. So I've talked about clarity there. The next condition for successful work transitions is reflection. Two essential conditions within reflection: time to think and digging deep. If I had £1 for every time somebody said to me, I just haven't got time to think, I could triple my income in a year. But if you don't make time to think, you can rush decisions, your stress is more increased, and actions are not even aligned with your goals. In fact, a lot of the time, people don't even really have a clear idea of their goals because they just haven't had the time and the space to create the right thinking environment. But it's so important. That's why sessions with me, I like to call them thinking appointments. It's like before I became a gym instructor, but still now, having a personal trainer wasn't just to tell me what to do in the gym, because I know what to do in the gym, but it's a time in the diary that holds me accountable. I go in and I smash it for 1 hour and I come out feeling loads better, knowing I've done the right kinds of things rather than finding an excuse not to. So it's time to hold people accountable. I just do an hour. An hour is still quite a lot for intensive thinking time, convenient, booked in advance. And every individual is different. So the sort of thinking environment needs to be tweaked and made different for each person to do their own best thinking. It's safe spaces for emotion. There's no judgment. People bring all sorts to sessions. And often there's nowhere else for those emotions to go. And I'm 100% focused on the individual, always in their corner. There's no bias or um, there's no ulterior motive. That's the one. The second reflection condition is digging deep. And that's recognizing the roots of thoughts and feelings. Because often, without doing that work, we can't overcome obstacles. There are always these things that are sort of niggling away with us, aren't there? That we kind of know are not really a strength and we could really do with dealing with it. And then in change, it all whooshes back up again. So if we don't dig deep to understand what's going on there, we can't overcome these obstacles as easily all the time. So we have to address these underlying issues, develop strategies to deal with them that actually work for us. And without this understanding, people can get stuck in these thinking loops. The same thoughts are just going around all the time because they haven't dealt with what's going on underneath. It leads to frustration. They're unable to make meaningful progress forwards, and it can hinder their development. And change brings up all this stuff, doesn't it? So I help people uncover those underlying beliefs. What's really going on under there? What experiences have led us to thinking and feeling this way? And interestingly, with all the change, what's triggering that now? It then helps them get new insights into themselves. And only then can they really start developing strategies to grow and move forwards. I listen deeply. Like, I always thought I was a good listener. And I'd done every sort of manager coaching course I could during my career. But when I trained as a professional coach and they teach you like proper listening, it is next level. And a lot of that then enables somebody to hold up a bit of a mirror and ask really challenging questions to help unlock those insights that people just can't get on their own. So this is David's story. David had just started a new role at a much bigger global company. Initially super confident, but he found himself coming up against unexpected challenges quite quickly. He got one of these roles where, you can shape your role, which is awesome, but then it feels super overwhelming. Key things were he was struggling to connect with his manager. They were very different, and also his manager had very little time for him. He felt overwhelmed by the high expectations and the sheer volume of opportunities to shape the role. Didn't know where to go, wasn't clear on what these high expectations even were specifically. That led to him emotionally feeling quite isolated and frustrated. And then this self-doubt started creeping in. And he tried to handle everything on his own. He thought that just working harder and longer hours would help him overcome these problems and that he'd just get there eventually. But all it did was make him knackered, knock his resilience and confidence. And it triggered some old perfectionism challenges that he'd never really dealt with. It was kind of under control before, but with all this change, it had thrown up again. And I can definitely relate to that. So he came to me and we identified what initially was and wasn't working. So there was some really great stuff. Of course, he wasn't focusing on that. It was all on the negative, but there's some really great stuff. But we also honed in on what wasn't working and what was having the biggest impact on how he was feeling and the way he was performing. We worked on how he could view his manager differently. We always want to think that someone will change or improve, or if we just persist, it will get better. But a bit like a partner, we cannot expect our managers to be and do everything, but you can choose to view them differently and view the situation differently. We started to dig a bit to understand where his perfectionism was coming from. It was actually really interesting. I identified it was actually coming from childhood and relationship with a sibling. But what was really interesting was he could see that that no longer served him and wasn't serving him in this situation. So he experimented with a few ideas that he came up with to try new approaches, both with the situation, the way he was thinking and feeling about it, the way he was approaching it, and the way he was thinking and feeling about his manager. I created that safe space for him to share his feelings because there was nowhere else for them to go. He felt he couldn't share it with his peers or his manager, and he didn't want to worry people at home. So it's a safe space for those feelings to sort of just release, to be honest. Explore his challenges, understand them better, and then just thought experiment at first, but then go and actually action some things and try some different things. He learned to better understand and communicate with his manager, control those perfectionism urges, and manage those imposter feelings much better. He ended up improving the relationship with his manager. He set much better boundaries. He felt more secure, connected, supported, and capable. And importantly, started to create more time for activities out of work. And then he got in that positive cycle. I'm sure we've all been in that situation where we've fallen out of that positive cycle and needed to drag ourselves back into it. So that was David's story. The next condition for successful work transitions is preparation. Now, preparation's a funny one. It's really, really important, but also with change, we don't always get much of a chance to do it, especially if a change sort of happens to us rather than a change that we've made happen for ourselves. And I think probably changes that happen to us in one way or another are the more common ones. But bear with me, because I see that most people don't prepare and plan thoroughly. And I think a lot of the time that is because they think they haven't got the time to, or that there's nothing to prepare and plan for the situation they're in. And I find myself regularly challenging that belief, because doing even a small amount of preparation and even having a rough plan, even if it changes tomorrow, gives you control, which your brain loves, confidence that others will notice and feel. You can do the swan much more easily. But without it, you can lose time. It can knock your credibility, and it can mean you make poorer decisions because you're not focused, you haven't really thought about it, and you haven't got a plan. So I challenge you to think, what can I do to gain control in the situation I'm in? What can I do to prepare and plan, even if it changes quite quickly? Now, I know that not everybody loves planning and preparation. Personally, I love it. Of course, I do, with my personality preference. And I love helping other people find the way that works for them to do it. But the absolute basics are helping people find out what they need to prepare for. What is the minimum and what is possible with the time you've got, with the information you've got in the situation that you're in? Then how to best go about planning for that person. Some people, like I said, love it. Give them an Excel spreadsheet, they'll put anything in it. Other people need colourful pens and a bit of paper. Some people like vision boards, mood boards, things like that. It's not my vibe, but I'll do it with someone if that works for them. And then crucially, what are the natural next steps just to get it done or to move forwards, even one step? Things don't always go to plan. And that is totally okay. A plan can change a million times. It's okay. Think of it more like a compass. You need to point yourself in a direction to be going anywhere. Otherwise, you're just going to stand still. So here's Claire's story. She was a senior manager in a marketing firm and discovered that a restructure meant that her role had changed. She was super grateful to still be in role. There had been a lot of role redundancies, but she was really disappointed that the role had become a lot less enjoyable and lacking in the development opportunities that she needed. So she described it to me as they've sucked the fun out of it. So she was really feeling disheartened, and she said, I think I want to stay, but I need to work through this if I'm going to continue to progress my career and to be happy here. She dreaded planning. It made her feel stuck, uncertain, and frustrated that she wasn't making the time to plan, but also she just didn't really enjoy it, didn't know where to start, especially in this situation. But she needed to plan her next career move and redefine that development plan in the new context she found herself in. She had spoken to her mentor, but they just told her what she already knew, that she needed to work out what she wanted and make a plan to get it. It's all well and good just saying this stuff, isn't it? But she was struggling to know how to do that in a way that worked for her. So she just kept getting stuck in this same loop of thinking and this panic and fear around the future. So, to make this well informed career decision and future plan, we went right back to the beginning. What are her values, her goals, and her options? And how do those stack up against each other? So, by going through the work to understand her true wants and needs, it led to decision making that was right for her in that situation then. It helped her challenge those hidden assumptions that were affecting the way that she was thinking and feeling about the situation. And it boosted her confidence in her decision because she knew she'd done the foundational work and had done it properly. She could move forward with quite some pace. So, because she didn't like planning, we just broke it down into manageable steps. We even did a little bit of work on why she didn't like planning, which was really interesting. Found ways to overcome some of those. And then we experimented with the approach to find things that worked for her. And we tried to make it as fun as possible. She made a really confident career decision. She did decide to stay. She created a development plan with me that communicated her needs to her company, what needed to change for this role to still stay interesting, to still stretch her so that she could continue delivering for the company and to essentially help retain her. It was really interesting, though, that she was super explicit with what she needed and she went and asked for it and she got everything on her list. And it just shows that if you don't ask, you don't get. But you kind of got to know what you're asking for first and then obviously position it in a way that demonstrates to the company why it's valuable to them. As she rediscovered her passion for her role and her career, she felt clearer, calmer, and way more confident in her decisions going forwards. That was a little while ago now, but she's still at that company. So it shows that it's really worked out for her. So I'm super chuffed for her. So we've talked about clarity, reflection, and preparation. Underneath all three of those, there has to be the right kind of support. Most people lack the support necessary to handle change, and they try and go it alone for too long and end up getting all stuck and stressed out. But having the right support makes you feel less alone, provides reassurance on the things that you are doing well, helps maintain that emotional balance, and helps you move forwards. I always talk about there being two types of support that you need in order to successfully navigate any change, but particularly when it comes to change at work. So, what do I mean by internal and external? So, internal could be within your organization or within your friends and family. It's kind of within your world. Friends and family are super important when we're going through change. That unconditional love and support means that we can get their perspective on the part of the transition that is maybe much more connected to personal happiness perspective. So long as we're aware of that is the approach that they're going to take to it. They just want us to be happy. They'll have that more holistic view of how the change is impacting our whole lives. Co-workers, managers, and mentors are super well placed for understanding your workplace, getting feedback, and hearing different experiences and perspectives. But internal support is rarely enough because those co-workers, managers, mentors, it's going to be their experience, not yours. It's going to be their advice, often contradicting each other. And they may have some underlying biases going on there that, actually, I really want this person to stay in this role. And friends and family, as I've said, can just be biased towards your happiness. Both are really important and really wonderful, but they are not enough alone. So that's why something external, such as coaching, plug, obviously, brings two game changers to thinking. One is objectivity. This person is 100% in your corner, and nothing goes anywhere. That majority of people that work with me, no one even knows that they're doing it, and that is totally fine. But that really unlocks thinking because when you're not worried about being judged, or you're not worried about saying the wrong thing, or something getting out that you're not feeling super confident or whatever, means you can just say and do whatever you need to move forwards. Working one-to-one with experienced, qualified, and an accredited with a professional body coach helps you challenge that thinking, find new perspectives that work for you, and keep you on track with any change you're going through. So how do you get the support that you need? So For that internal friends, family, colleague support, share how you're feeling with selected family and friends. And I stress that because we all have a friend that maybe isn't that positive or not very helpful, or a family member is going to be really focused on just wanting you to, I don't know, quit your career and do something else because they think it'll make you happier. So be really mindful about who you choose to share it with and who will be helpful for you. Consider what, if any, support might be available to you. But again, look at it with that lens of what's the bias there, what's the objective there. If appropriate, just identify a couple of people. But if you're going to speak to anybody, make sure you've got tangible objectives for every interaction. Don't just sort of go for a chat. You need to know what you want out of it and to be super mindful of those biases or politics that's going on underneath that you need to sort of layer on top of the conversation. For external, identify a coach who's experienced in change in transitions, check they're qualified, and book a complimentary discovery call and prepare for it. What do you want to get out of it? The important thing is to work with somebody you feel you can open up to and you think will understand you, because that's when you'll do your best work. So, my top 3 tips for successful work transitions. Be proactive, take control of your situation. Be really mindful of who you talk to, and crucially, get support. Don't go it alone. Navigating change and making decisions is not easy. It's why I do what I do. It takes energy, proactivity, and loads of support to absolutely maximize it. Hopefully, today you've got some thoughts on how to go about that. Maybe got some ideas on which part of what I've spoken about today might need to be a focus area for you to absolutely go and smash that work transition. One-to-one coaching with me is a solution that includes the 4 things that I see are most missing when it comes to work transitions. That confidentiality and objectivity of support. The appropriate level of challenge, even if that means sometimes being asked something or being shown something that is tough. Dedicated time to think, making that time and space, and digging deep to get to the root causes. And that's why you've got to think about having that regular time. I start with weekly, then go to every other week, confidential, 1-hour online coaching sessions fit around your life. Sessions booked in advance for that accountability at a time that's. I have a few things if people haven't had coaching before, just to help you know how to prepare so you maximize your sessions. And I'm a strong believer in autonomy. No notes, no homework, unless you ask for it. I work with a few people who are neurodivergent, who want to record sessions or who want notes from me or something. Happy to flex. But ultimately, the onus is on you to take responsibility for your own development. So how does it work working with me? You can book a free online context call. They're 45 minutes long, really good opportunity to speak in more detail about what you're going through specifically. I can share some initial thoughts, see if you like me, I like you, all that sort of thing. Then on the back of that, if you're interested in working together and we think we can help, if I think I can help you, then you get a tailored quote specifically to your situation. Then it's as simple as book your first online session and start the work. Also, for anybody who has stayed this long, thanks for sitting through my plug. There is a free 1-hour accountability session that I add on at 6 months after completing your coaching program with me. That helps with accountability. It helps to stay focused. So if that's something you are interested in and you would like to work together, then just mention it in your context call that you were on this call, and it's something that you'd like added into your proposal from me. This month, there are only 2 slots left to start working with me. So if you are interested, please do book a context call. It's absolutely no obligation, good opportunity to get to know each other better, talk about transitions, which I could do all day. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about. So if you are interested, you can scan this QR code. The link to my website is also on my LinkedIn profile. Website is www.risecmc.uk. And my calendar is on there and you can book a context call straight away. So, wherever you are on your change curve, whatever work transition you're going through right now, absolutely go and smash it. Grab it with both hands. You are in control. You can do this. And thank you for listening today. Hopefully, I've given you a few things that you can reflect on, and that you can go and action straight away. But now I'm going to open up to thoughts, reflections, questions. So please use the chat. I can see that Hassie, hello, Hassie, lovely to see you. I reminded you of mindset training course you took a couple of years ago. That's great. It's good to know it's consistent. But yeah, absolutely, mindset. That's why I start with mindset. Mindset has got to be done first, that work on mindset, those assumptions and beliefs we often don't even realize we're carrying around with us, but are affecting the way we're approaching change. And it will genuinely affect how quickly we get through that Kubler-Ross change curve, right? So mindset is absolutely essential for any change. Does anybody else have any other thoughts or reflections that they'd like to share? What resonated most with you? And any questions, of course, is a Q&A. It's possible I've just answered all of the questions. Please do share if you're comfortable as well what work transition you're going through, so I can share any further thoughts on that specific kind of transition. But I've written today really as a suitable for all kind of work transitions. It's very top line, of course, but hopefully you can see and interpret in that what's impacting you and what you need to focus on today. But definitely, if you're thinking, where do I start? As Hassie said, I think that mindset and resilience is really, really important. So please do take some time tonight over the weekend to reflect on this. That's when the magic happens. It doesn't always happen in a coaching session or on a webinar or on a training course. It's that mulling you do afterwards. Sometimes we have our best ideas in the shower, don't we, or driving. So do mull on this. I will also send you the recording of this so that you can flick through, remind yourself of certain bits. And you absolutely know where I am if you want to have a call together and just chat some things through, or if you've got any specific questions or reflections, DM me on LinkedIn. You'll have my email after this as well. I'll send you the recording, and be great to hear your feedback and your thoughts on this session as well. I run it sort of every 3 to 4 weeks-ish, because we're always going through transitions, right? It might not be appropriate this week, but it might be next week. You never know. So if there's anybody else you think could benefit from it, please do send them my way. Keep an eye out for the next session, which will be in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. So if there are no other reflections or questions, then I will close the call. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope I've given you a few things to think about, given you a bit of energy to take control of whatever change that you're going through today. And keep in touch. I hope you have a lovely weekend and go smash that transition. Thank you. Bye-bye.